one of the reasons that we're doing this is so that people can get a, a much more in-depth uh, experience before if they want to come and work with us. It's nice for them to understand the cut of your jib. How do you react? How do
Hmm.
you act? How do you react? What do you say about things? And they can get a real sense of what it's like to work with you. uh, and we've already, when we first started, one of the people that we recently hired, we were, I think we had a few of these segments uh, online in YouTube, and but we directed people to hey, if you're interested in working with us, take a look at some of the take a look at how we look at things, and if you like how we look at things, you can imagine whether you
Hmm.
that you might like working with us. And in a time like right now, and it almost seems today it doesn't matter what the, I mean, it does and it doesn't, but it doesn't matter what the employment or unemployment rates are. It's really hard to find the right people to work with you in whatever you're creating. And I think one of the reasons for that is because there's so many platforms that if you're looking for a job, you can just it seems like people are just rifling their
Hmm.
resumes out there to anything that's even remotely close. They might, in the past, where there used to be newspapers, right?
Oh yeah.
The help wanted, or you've got a headhunter or something like that. There are very few places where you're going to put your resume, or you had to mail them. You actually had to copy off your resume, put it in an envelope, pay for postage. Now it's free. They want you to post your resume because that makes them look good. Whatever the job platform is, and you can just bam, 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 as fast as you can pull the trigger, you can shoot your resume out. So then companies now, like us, First Financials, overloaded with with uh, let's say we get, I think the when we're looking for somebody most recently, we had something like in a very short period of time, 400 resumes. And how on earth do you sort through 400 resumes? Because what your job description is not even close to what these people are qualified for, or what they
Hmm.
seem like they'd even be interested in or good at. Yet they sent it in, and now you have to look at it. And looking at it, takes time. And I don't know if they don't care what kind of job they get, but the people that do care really seem to appreciate understanding who we are and what it is we do and how we look at things. And somebody who joined us just the other day loved, she basically said, I have to work with these guys. I don't want to work anywhere else. And in fact, she even said at one point when she read our job description, because it's not, it doesn't look and sound like everybody else's. We write it in the words that we would use. So we write things in the way that we would choose. And she read it, and she was like, are these guys for real? And then she saw this stuff, and she goes, all right, it seems so they are.
Hmm.
So if and so uh, we attract better fitting people when we provide a deeper platform for them to see us and see what it might be like. Because a lot of companies too will, I mean, look at all their sites. They'll, it almost, how they talk about themselves is kind of like how everybody else talks about themselves. And so, how do you even know, as somebody who's looking for a job, how do you know if you like them or not? Because they all sounded look alike. We're the leaders in the industry. We're all they all say it. There can only be one leader, right? But they all say they are. We're the words. And so we don't. We used to have somebody that wrote our marketing things, and she would write the same stuff, and I would say, no, we don't want to say that, because that's, whether we are or not, everybody else is saying it. So how does anybody know whether it's true or not? And who's to say whether we are or aren't? But if you so it seems like this is it's a, I don't know if you call it, it's like a very transparent uh, tool, or resource that people can use, and to see if we're right. And if we're right, you know it saves you a lot of time. I was talking to, so I'll call this a platform. I think it's important to show people what you're made of, so that they can use their time effectively and yours. And if they love what you do, you know, we all are using our time most effectively, and we're finding the right matches, and we're using our, our life in the best way. Was talking to we used a couple of different accountants, but the account that we've used for years and years was having a real tough time finding new accountants. They wanted to grow, and one guy retired, and so they're trying to find the right people. And I talked to him about this. I go, well, because he was lamenting. It's like, man, you just can't find,
Hmm.
very global words like, you just can't find anybody today. Kids don't want to blah 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 today. And I'm thinking, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, no, kids are human. They just don't want to work with stodgy, worn out people like you. Your accounting firm looks like every other stodgy accounting firm in the country. There's nothing exciting, nothing interesting about what are you going to say to them? Why don't you put, what if you did something like what we're doing here? Like, well, why don't you tell some stories about some deals that you're doing?
Right.
Like, oh man, here's the kind of things you run into. Here's this company that, the trucking company that blah 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 blah, or the somebody selling beanie babies, or what, whatever the case is. What if you told some stories and they go, oh, that's what I want to do. And he goes, I don't want to. That seems like work. I thought, well, yeah, it's work, but now you're suffering, man. You're twisting. And he's like, I'm not interested in that. Okay. And so they never did find anybody, and they ended up merging with he instead ended up merging with another company who has more things figured out, is more willing to do
Hmm.
things, and including HR related stuff. Uh, and I thought, okay, well, and so now we get the same. So when it was interesting, because that was the beginning of the end of working with him, because I thought, okay, this is how resourceful you are
Right.
not.
Right.
When you're looking at our stuff too, is this all you just look at the basics? You're not. And I thought, that's probably true. And so we started looking for somebody a little. You don't have to be clever, but like you got a little more engaging, and because they weren't, and then they started making mistakes, and that was, and part of the reason they made mistakes is because they joined this with this bigger firm, and now they've got people who don't care, paying attention to, or half paying attention to our stuff, which just cost us a bit of money recently.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
that we didn't, it wasn't filed right. Now, I don't know. Yeah. And went back, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It pointed the finger at, oh, it's so and so's fault. Well, I don't care. But I thought back to this conversation about providing something just a little more interesting for the world to see. I would imagine clients too. Imagine being, we're client, all of us look for accounting firms. Wouldn't
Right.
it be cool to be able to go to their site and go, oh man, they've got stories, all kinds of stories. Here's what we did for this company. Here's the situation. Here's the problem that they were having, or the concern or question. And here's what we found when everybody else didn't. So that's one of the things that we want to provide here. I mean, quite frankly, it's not only to give a different view, different vantage point to how we see things and how we put things together and create and build in a little different way than most everybody else, but it's also it's informational, it's entertaining, and it's also very functional, for us to attract people who love what we're talking about, and and for us to find the right people, who love what we're talking about, and then have the right skill. Right? It's not just that they might enjoy
Right.
working with us, but it's the right people who love working with us. So I think I, I think it's something that more companies should do. So the topic here is what do you choose for a career? Well, you know, you, our youngest son is 25, and he talks about his friends, like, they're 25 years old, and already it's like, ah, God, I hate my job. I've got to go to work tomorrow. And I think by providing what we provide, people can make better choices, whether if they want to come and work with us and how interesting it might be, uh, as opposed to going to work for some company that you had no idea about, but they looked good, they sounded good in their marketing. Um, it's interesting to see kids so young already kind
Hmm.
of checked out, can't wait to die or retire. You know, uh,
Long way
I
to go
think
at
more.
that age, though.
No, yeah, yeah. There's
So,
the long way to go, a long way
hmm
to go, and they're already checked out. It sounded good. The job descriptions, we don't have cool job descriptions here. Maybe we need better ones, but you can go to the company that looks like they're the leaders of the industry and have cool job titles and then hate every minute of it,
hmm
and
hmm
or you can find companies, you can find out a little bit more about a company before you go with them. And I hope that by saying that, more people do it, and and more companies see this, right? If you want to get if you want to get the best people, then I think you have to provide the not, it's like you need to provide the best fit for
right.
them, right? And that's one of the reasons we do this, is to demonstrate who we are and what we do and how we do it and how we look at it. And if you like that, then you're probably going to love it here. If you don't, then that's fine. It's good to know that you're not a good fit, and for us to know that you're not also. So, and we use this too, like, oh, did you see our YouTube channel?
hmm
And if they say no, you go, why don't you take a look at it? And then if you like it, if you love it, why don't you get back to me, or us,
hmm
and let's go from there. And if they never do, that's fine, because you want people who are interested in what it is you do, right? And interested enough to, because when they're on your team, you want them engaged and being clever and creative and helping you build the thing you want to build, and they're going to get a lot of satisfaction out of it too.
hmm
But if they don't even take the initiative to poke around and look at you and understand who you are and why they would want to go to work with you, then they're probably not the right, they're not the right ones, and we don't have to waste our time or theirs. They can go over to big bank on the corner, with no personality, and
Right.
you know that fit right in.
Yeah, it's been a lot of years since I've quote unquote looked for a job, but I think from that perspective, from the other perspective of being a potential employee or partner or whatever you're looking to do, your career wise, having the opportunity to like see the people you're working with in action prior to getting there, that man, that answers a lot of questions.
Yeah,
Because how many times have you interviewed someone? Like I remember interviewing. I mean, we've done it all, right? And I
yeah,
remember interviewing people and going, man, this is the perfect fit. They
yeah,
sound great. They're going to be awesome. They got the right personality. And what we do at the corporate level is a lot of what we do here is on the phone, so you
yeah.
gotta, there's a certain way to sell on the phone. And man, they check all the boxes. First day they get on the phone, they act like they've never been on the phone before.
Yeah,
And it's almost like they change their personality. And it's like, hey, I've even said, I'm like, hey, hey, what happened to that guy that I interviewed a couple weeks ago? I said, if you bring that guy back or that woman or whatever, you bring that person back, you're going to rock it. But if you keep, it's like they almost like put on a different hat when they get into, I mean, what you
yeah,
see here is what you get. Like if you were to call either one of us today and out of the blue and get us on the phone, we'd be the exact same on the phone with you, or if I met you in person, as we are here. I mean, there is no, it's like, look, we'd rather lay it out and go, this is what it is. And if this
yeah,
fits you, you're going to fit in great here, and
yeah.
and be successful. It's
Well,
life's
and there's
heavy
things to
enough,
talk to them about too. Like, what if when you do say, "Hey, did you see our YouTube channel? Do you see the
hmm
videos on our website under the Freedom Library? Which ones grabbed your attention?" And you go,
Right,
"Oh, well, now you have something to talk about." It's not
right.
like, how when you interview over the course of decades, you come up with all kinds of different questions.
Oh, sure.
Well, and you go online and go, what are good questions to ask in an interview?
Right.
And too, when they show up with all the basic questions or all the standard ones,
hmm
you go, really,
hmm
that's it? I
hmm
know where you got this list. Do you have
Uh-huh.
any ones that are your unique thoughts? And so this gives us the opportunity to not even go down that road. You don't have to do that. You can go, well, what where what'd you see? What grabbed your attention? Have you ever
Right.
dealt with things like that? What have you done that's similar? What, where, what about this? What about that? you've done this. How'd you do that? Oh, okay. So at this other place that you worked, they had you do it like that. Have you clicked on such and such?
Hmm.
Like here, well, depending on where you're seeing this, if you're on YouTube, um, I don't know, Ian, you have a better idea of if they can, they search and find, because we can go, hey, search for this, see
Hmm.
that, watch that. Did you do it that way or did you do it a different way?
Right.
Oh, you did it like that. Well, what did you experience? Now you're getting deep, right? You're getting into deep conversation about what their real experience was, because the resumes, those don't really
Right.
tell you anything.
Right.
We've looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of resumes. And you go, wow, these all kind of look the same. They're about three
Yeah.
formats. They must teach, you must go to a resume course at school. And of course they go, here's how you juice this up. You
Right.
use these, and they all, from this perspective, you see it, right? It's like, oh my goodness, they're all taking the same class. You can either go with number one, two, or three,
Hmm.
which one sounds better for you. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah. So just this kind of thing it just makes it's just so much better, and I hope that more companies do this their version of it, right?
Right.
And I think it'd be fun if they did, like if I wanted to be a banker, a commercial banker, man, I want to do deals. Tell me about deals. Don't tell me
Right.
you're the number one bank in the Southwest.
Right.
Who cares? What is it that you really want to do? So the point is career, right? What is it? How do you want to spend your life? And that's one of the things that everybody misses too. It's like, where do you want to spend? It's most of your waking life for all of your best years is where are you going to spend working? So what is it, and they don't teach us that in high school. I remember when I was in senior in high school, and it was they're trying to figure out where you should go to college or what you should do next, right? What's your next step? And so we all took some inventory, and I think kids still do some version of this. They, some sort of inventory where you check the boxes. Oh, I'm interested in, this, that, and the other thing, and here's what I'm good in school at, and when if I'm in a group, do I stand alone or talk to people? All those kinds of
Right.
questions. And then I remember the day I met with it was my turn. I met with a guidance counselor, and everybody one by one goes to meet with the guidance counselor. And I remember, I'm going to meet the guidance counselor, and they're going to tell me finally who I am and what I should be
They're gonna
doing,
tell you who
right?
you
Because
are.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm
Yeah. Right.
17, 18 years old. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I wish
Right.
somebody would tell me, right? There's songs written about this kind of stuff. Oh, tell me who I am.
Right.
Most people go through life not knowing, but I was going to find out. I was going to find out that day. And so it's like I was like, this is going to be good. I'm finally all the questions are answered. So I sit down, and he pulls out the file and looks at the name, looks at me, and like, yeah, okay, same, right guy. And he goes, hey, John, again, and he flips it open and goes, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there's this wheel, a career wheel, they call it, and
Hmm.
it's this pie shape, and it's all these careers, and you've got like three places that are what I would be, what their analysis said I should do, and so he goes, yeah, I got three great careers for you. And I went, okay. And he said the first one is accountant. You'd make a good accountant. And I thought, never even occurred to me to be an accountant. I
Right.
thought, okay, well, what's okay? And I thought, all right, hadn't really thought of that, so I was just kind of trying it on. And he said, and I go, okay, what's the second one? I said, mortician. You make a
Oh.
good mortician. And I went, okay, number three. Number three,
Yeah.
what's number three? Forest ranger. And I went, forest ranger, that's the life
There it
for me.
is. There
So
it
I
is.
signed up. I went to school, Bemidji State University, signed up for pre-forestry because that's all they had. That was the only forestry program that anywhere you could, anywhere around. So off to Bemidji, Minnesota, I went to become a forest ranger. And, and that wasn't for me. I quickly realized, and then it's like, oh crap, man, I'm back to not knowing who I am.
Hmm.
What am I doing? It takes it takes a long while to figure out what it is that you really want to do, and most people don't. They get into
Right.
being a forest ranger, and then they do that, and they're forest ranger for the rest of their life. And I always know that it's not quite
Hmm.
the right fit, but they don't they need to start telling you in school. They go, well, let's imagine life. They don't do any of this, but teachers don't know. They
Right.
they became teachers because I don't know. I want the summers off. You
Right.
know, they're probably not teachers because they love, I don't know, maybe they are, but I think, my mom's side of the family are all teachers, so I'm kind of familiar with teachers, and a couple of them were pretty good, and one of them I know that aunt or uncle, not gonna say which, you know, just wanted summers off. That was the deal, right? Just wanted summers off, and couldn't wait couldn't, like, I remember science projects were, you know, uh, pulling pages out of Ranger Rick magazine and stapling to a bulletin board and pointing and going, oh, there you go. There's our science for the day. And couldn't wait to retire, right? Just couldn't wait. Well, one of my other uh, aunts or uncles from the same side of the family, it's like teaching until they couldn't teach anymore, right? They were just, get the hell out of here. You're too old. You've been teaching
Right.
too long. But so excited and loved it so much, and still talks about how great it was, while the other one goes, God, I hated every minute of it. Can you imagine? So anyway, so it's the point there is teachers don't know. Then nobody taught them to think about life either. Nobody teaches guidance counselors even today, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and I see my kids had gone through this, really a similar process, and
Right.
they go, "Oh, you should go to this school." No, why? Why? Why should you go to that school? There's no good reason, because and they don't talk about life, and I think if they would do some sort of at least half-assed attempt at, what's the lifestyle, or the style of life? What's the style of life? What the style of things? Because then, even if you wanted to be a forest ranger, you go, I just want to be a forest ranger. I just love being in the woods. You go,
Right.
okay, well then, if you want other things in life besides 2 weeks off to vacation and have to fly in coach, if you want, then you better get into some version of forestry where you can figure out how to pay for the lifestyle, so you can buy the lifestyle. So at least to have that, plant that seed in kids' minds early, like, because it doesn't, you don't have to have a place at the beach. You don't have to, not want to fly coach. It's like you want to be able to fund the life that you want most, right? That maybe that you're here to live. And so, if you're going to be a forest ranger, that's cool. If you're going to be an accountant, that's cool. If you're going to be a mortician, that's cool. But just understand that there's a style of life that you want to live, and at some point you need to figure out how to do that career that you really enjoy, in a way that provides you the money, the
Right.
price tag that it costs to do the things. Send your kids to private school, and be able to take vacations, and whatever it is that you want to do, and have the downtime to. So it's like it's a huge deal, that if we just spent a little more, I think, intentional time, and individualized it a little bit, and asked just an additional question or two. Oh, you're good at these things. What's the style of life? Oh, I just want to, because some people don't want what you want, right?
Hmm.
They want to just, look, I just want a quiet existence on the edge of town, where I can live in a small house and have a dog. Okay, then don't worry about doing this in a different way. Do your accountant job, your mortician job, or your forest ranger job, and just enjoy that. But they missed the lifestyle part of it, um, which I think they really need. If they added that, I think people would be happy more.
Hmm.
So, and that would be a good thing. If you wanted your kids, to, how would you coach your kids? How would you coach your neighbor's kid? What if you, suggested to somebody to look at it in a little different way? And if you're looking for something, like we work a lot with entrepreneurs, and I think one of the entrepreneurs make the same mistake too. They just get into something for the money. Oh man, you can make a ton of money doing this. Yeah, but there's more to it than that, and often you don't make the money because you really don't enjoy the whatever the opportunity is. It's where you spend your time should be taken. We should put just a little more thought into it, just a little
Hmm.
more thoughtful in where we spend our time, because you get talked into it, like, oh my God, I was selling these supplements, when you're getting wrangled, when you're when your buddy goes, hey, come over to come over to, there's a really cool speaker over at this other person's house. Bring a ladder, because you're just going to be climbing, man. You're just going to,
Yeah.
whatever the deal was. Bring a ladder because you're
Climb
you're
your way
you're
to
you're climbing
success.
high.
You're going
Yeah,
to
climb
climb
your way
your
to
way to
success.
success.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's going to be awesome. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wake up the next day and go, oh shit, I'm selling, and then things don't work out because it really wasn't. You just got wrapped up in the moment. It's like, oh, well, this
Right.
guy's making 600 grand a whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like I want 600 grand, so I'll sell that crap. How many of those have you joined? you know, you ever join any of those, Chuck?
I've never done anything like that. I don't, not that I can remember.
Didn't you sell air purifiers once as a kid?
Yeah, but I made I did it
Oh
when I was in
yeah, okay.
college. I did it. It wasn't 600 grand. It wasn't 600 grand, but yeah, but I made a good amount of money and paid for a semester of college, and then I went, yeah, this
Did
sucks.
you really sell an air filter
Yeah,
purifiers?
yeah. I went to
Did
every
you?
bar. I went to University of Iowa, and every bar in town. Back then, you could smoke in the bars, right? So when you go into a bar, you just like, Jesus, like the stale beer and the smoke smell. So it was a relatively easy sale at the time, but it didn't take long to go, yeah, this is not a career path for me. This is not, no, not happening. Because to make that money, you had to be, you're married to it, man. You're every day. I mean, no,
You're going into smoky, stinky bars
yeah,
every
yeah,
day.
it sucked. It sucked. Yeah, yep.
So there you go. You can, and even if you're making money, there you go. Maybe you can do
Yeah,
it for a while, and you go, okay, this sucks.
no,
I just,
no,
drive you to drinking more at those bars than selling them. You just go back and go, dude, I've already bought one. I
right.
know, but I can't take it anymore. I'm here to drink.
Yeah,
I'm here so
right. I'm a patron now. I'm going to drink my profits away.
yeah, yeah.
Like, man,
But you mind if I sit by the air purifier?
right? Yeah. Oh man, that was almost 40 years ago now. That's crazy. Crazy.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many of those things, but it's easy to get roped in even a career, right? You go,
Right.
oh man, I want to, the number of times I've heard our youngest son go, oh, an analyst, oh, my buddy's an analyst over at such and such bank, and he hates it, and the kid can't know what he's doing. I've seen what analysts do, and
Right.
they make a lot of mistakes,
Yes, they do.
and they go, okay, here's a kid who's hating life. They don't do anything. They do as little as possible, and that's what most people who just go get a job, a
Mm,
good job, right, a good
mm.
job, end up hating most every good job. And so you want to show up as late as possible, take as many breaks as possible, and get the hell out of there as soon as
As soon as
possible.
possible. Right.
So you can go, so you can escape. You don't want to be there. You want to escape. You don't like your work. They pay you too much, because they can't find anybody
Right.
who's really good at it. So they pay anybody an exorbitant amount of money just to sit there and punch a couple buttons.
Right.
The kid punching the buttons doesn't like it.
Right.
Can't wait to go to happy hour or go gaming or whatever the escape is. Put some virtual reality goggles on and just get the hell out of this life.
Well,
You
and then
know?
the problem is that you get paid too much. I mean, it's just enough to be too much. You know what I mean? Where you go, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
can kind of do the things I want to do, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're in a position where you go, I, I this is you should take risks the younger you are because the risks are cheaper when you're younger.
Yeah.
When you've got a $7,000 a month mortgage and you got a $1,500 a month car payment or whatever the hell you got going on, that's an expensive risk. But so starting at zero isn't necessarily the worst thing because it's easy to recover. When
Well,
you know what I
yeah.
mean. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I've got a friend an entrepreneur, sort of an independent contractor, kind of,
Right.
but he ended up buying this guy out, and because that's the business that he knew, he's
Right.
always working, and I go, man, and I was talking to him. He goes, yeah, but I can't. I've created. How did he say that? A very expensive lifestyle.
Yeah.
So just like you said, and he's got
Can't take
now,
risks now.
yeah, he's got a place. He's got three homes, yeah,
Mhm.
and cars and
And
kids, and
kids
he's
and
like, I can't do anything,
can't risk it. Yep.
besides this.
Right.
And how many people over the course of time too, like when we're hiring, when we're looking for people, and they go, and so what we'll often do is we pay a lot on performance. So we'll
Right.
go, look, we'll give you, you want this much, right? You want that much. That'll make you
Mhm.
happy, right? Oh yeah, that's it. Well, we pay this much, but we give the opportunity to make this much. And they
Mhm.
go, I can't afford to do that
Right.
because,
I'm stuck.
I have to make this amount of money. I go, well, that's not my fault.
Right.
I can help you make this amount of money,
Right.
but it's uncertain, right? Because they don't know if they're going to succeed or not. So they're willing to just take enough to be able to stay in their expensive rut,
Right.
whatever the cost is. But it's almost it's every time I've ever run across that, it's just, like you said, it's just enough. It's
Mhm.
just, if they make a little bit less, they're going to take on water, and they don't
Right.
know if they're going to be able to survive.
Right.
It's like, no, and they hate it. They don't, and the more they have to do it, the more they dislike it. It's like,
Well, and
man,
people do more
it's
to avoid loss than they do gain. It's like, all right, you
yeah,
got to have the right mindset going into this. Like, okay, because I don't know if it was if it was earlier, if a couple of days ago, you said that people are always the game should almost be is how quickly can I retire? I'm not saying you have to, but the game should be how quickly. Because see, I like choices. I like to have choices. I like to wake up every day and go, I can either decide to continue on with this, or I can decide to do something completely different. And but the only way you get to the those choices is you have to make good decisions. You have to make good choices on the way there, right? And get into something that can support that lifestyle. If I'm a forest ranger, if I leave forestry, then I better get into something that can either match or surpass that revenue. I don't have choices. I can't just go out and go, hey, I'm going to start my own business where I have zero revenue coming in and I got to come up with this plan because I need all my money to survive. It's like, yeah, that's not a good spot to be in. And get into things that have, like, we love the residual income game. And that's what
yeah,
every one of our sales partners will tell you in this, in our deal, is they go, I love the fact that every time I make a sale, I am increasing my monthly revenue with residual income, because some of them take their foot off the accelerator, some push it down even harder because they know it's easy to push down the accelerator when you know you have choices. It's hard when you know you don't have choices. You're like, I'm stuck.
yeah. Well,
That's
and whether
not
it's
good.
going to work, right?
Right.
Because passive income starts at zero, and so if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's making 8,000, so let's say whatever the number is, $7,000 a month, you go, okay, $7,000 a month, so you're making 84 grand a year,
Mm-hmm.
and so and you're probably, the chance of you ever making more than that, you might make a little bit more. Most people advance about twice in life, and that's it. And
Right.
so, and that's where they level off, and they that's it. There's really no incentive to work any harder, because
Right.
it's the chances of making more, and the chances of advancing. So somebody has to on the corporate ladder or something, uh, um, so there's not a lot of incentive, and so then you get stuck. You start spending 7 grand a month, and
Mm-hmm.
then you look at something like this or anything where they go passive income, that everybody wants it, but that means I have to start at zero, and I
Right.
can't afford to start at zero.
Right.
And so, even though you can get to the point where your $7,000 a month and more
Mm-hmm.
is coming in, whether you work or not, it's that rut, that 7 grand rut that you're in, that you can't go to zero because you have all the 7 grand rut that you have to
Mm-hmm.
pay for every month, and you're not certain how long it's going to take to get to 7 grand in passive income, and it's
Right.
probably not going to be overnight. It's because I don't even know how to do it, so it starts slow.
Right.
But you know, back to you're talking about, you see it on our, around on our website and videos, and people that work with us, and these people are making 7 8 grand a
Mm-hmm.
month, and 15,000 and $25,000 a month, and that's a that, if you're making 7 8 grand, your $84,000 is covered.
Right.
And so now you can decide, I want to add some more, I don't want to add some
Mm-hmm.
more. You back to your choices. And the person that continued to mash on the pedal, I remember the one of them I'm thinking about, who now makes like twice that. Uh, he wanted, his goal was 7 grand a month because he
Mm-hmm.
had to replace.
his
some
last
other income.
deal.
And yeah, and now he makes twice that, and he's just, he just chuckles like, I can't, I can't, even if I stopped working for 2 months, I'd still make
Hmm.
$30,000.
Hmm.
And all he ever wanted to make was 7 grand a month.
Right.
And now he doubles that, and he's like, this is crazy, and it doesn't come overnight. You have to build it, and you think of somebody making 25 grand, and the first person I think of that makes 25 grand used to have to work 6.5 days a week to make 60,000 a year,
Hmm.
and now he makes 300,000 working almost, a day a week,
Hmm.
you know, and maybe it's a couple hours a day over the course of a week, but as it's but they made that choice because they looked at, I think that, I don't know what each one did, but I
Right.
know me, I looked at life and I go, okay, what's the style of life I want? I'm willing to grind this out and build
Hmm.
this to build freedom. Basically, you're building freedom, right? All you're doing is building a thing called freedom, and everybody wants it, but it's it's not what, I think they just step into it and recreate what they have, and it's
Yeah.
like that, but it's
Well, I don't
not
think
like
they
that.
know.
It's not.
I
Yeah,
think
they
they
don't
just
know.
don't know how to do it. So, if you have an opportunity to get with someone who does know how to do it and has shown multiple people how to do it, that's kind of the road you should be going down. I mean, it's really
Yeah,
hard to invent something or come up with something from scratch and get there, right? Because most things
yeah,
nowadays have been thought of. Unless you're in your underoos writing code in the basement and you come up with some fancy, freaking deal, you're probably not going to come. It's just not going to happen. So
yeah.
there's opportunities out there. You gotta,
You got to get with,
you,
right. You got to get with, or you don't got to, but you really save a lot of time. You
yeah.
save a lot of time, save a lot of steps, increase your speed. You go
Hmm.
with a guide, right? You
Yeah.
go with a guide who's done it themselves. They've done it with a lot of people. It's
Hmm.
like going out here. If I was going to go out fishing, most you'd go, man, what a beautiful ocean. There must be
Yeah.
fish all over the place. There's not.
Right.
There's not.
Right.
There's certain places where there's loads of fish, and most of the places there's not the fish that you're looking for. You're not going to catch anything. But if you go with a guide, they go exactly right to the place with the right sort of bait, with the right sort of equipment.
Hmm.
Bim, bam, boom, and you come back to shore holding. You got
Yeah.
your picture taken with your
Trophy
stringer of
fish
fish.
and
You
right.
know, Meanwhile, the other guy is going that went up by himself and trying to figure the stuff out by themselves. They've got nothing. They go,
Right.
there's no fish in that ocean.
Right.
This must,
Liars.
I've got the wrong bait. I've got the wrong, well, you've got the wrong everything. But you
Right.
go with the guide, he's got the right everything. And
Right.
and one goes fishless and hungry, and the other's like, man, there's more fish out there than you ever need.
And
The
that's a
difference
real
between,
interesting concept because you see that in business too, where y'all like there's times where you're flourishing, right? You're nailing it. Your system's working right, and it feels good. And then you hear other people go, "Oh my god, I just can't believe." And it's like, dude, because you're running the wrong system. Number one, you
right,
may probably haven't even systemized it, so
right,
you're trying to
right,
recreate the
right.
wheel every day. So I'm trying to
Well,
recreate the
in our
wheel every day.
business, our business
I do it
is
all the time.
crazy competitive.
Yep.
You know, It's crazy competitive. So how do you in a competitive business get any business,
Right.
let alone set records in the number of accounts
Mm-hmm.
that you
Mm-hmm.
get, month after month, year after year. How do you? And so that's what we've done, right? Not only
Right.
do you figure out how to how to build freedom, but you build freedom, you keep tweaking it, and you go, okay, I want to build freedom in this sort of way. It's not just pretend freedom like
Mm-hmm.
the buddy who makes a good amount of money, but he's got no time, and
Uh-huh.
he hates it. He keeps buying expensive stuff because he keeps making money, but he can't figure out how to make time,
Right.
right? And so if you go, all right, I want a system where I can make money and time, and I want to increase both to the point where I'm making a bunch of money and I have a bunch of time.
Right.
That's the ideal, right? And how do you do that fast? Like a point you made earlier, how do you get there? How do you get to that point that sooner than later? How do you
Right.
increase your speed, reduce the number of steps?
Right.
How do you do that?
And
It takes a long time to figure that stuff out by yourself.
yes.
We had to figure it out by ourselves. We didn't have a guide. I didn't know of any guide. All the guides that you go to, oh,
Mhm.
come over here, sell the water filters. You're gonna get rich. I don't want to do that.
But
Do
they're
mortgages, do your real estate, do it's like, just stop. There's no, it's like, no, I want passive income, even if you're
Right.
making $5 a month.
Right.
I remember back when we did make about $5 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a little Chevy S10 pickup. I remember
Mm-hmm.
finally making enough passive income where my $147 pickup payment was covered. It's like,
Right.
woo,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
a little bit, it feels good. It's like, I felt so cocky making $147 a month in passive income, but it's cool. I felt cocky because it worked. I felt
Good work.
confident, right?
Right.
Probably a little cocky, but because
Yeah.
that's just, a
That's
fault
youth.
that I have. But
That's youth.
it's just me, right? It's not the deal. It's the personality.
Right.
Uh, and then I remember, we had very low overhead, back when,
Yeah.
and but I remember at one point when I think it's like $3,400 a month. I was making $3,400 a month in passive income, and that's all we needed.
Yeah.
That was all we needed at that point.
Right.
And it's like, look, look, look. We're
Mm-hmm.
free. We're free. And of course, then you have to build a bigger house. All your
Oh
kids got
yeah.
to go to private school. She wants a
Yeah.
Mercedes, not a minivan. Then you get all that stuff, and you go, okay, I guess, yeah, I'm not free anymore, but I know how to get there. I know how to
Right.
build it. And then
Right.
so you build it for that, and then go, it'd be nice to have a place at the beach. We got to build it for that. And whatever. You want to have investment money, or
Mm-hmm.
Chuck invest in real estate, long term rentals.
Yep.
Yeah, and I want money for that. And then if I don't have renters and it's upside down, I want to have passive income to be able to cover that. Or when COVID happens, or whatever, that's just
Oh
all
yeah.
the crazy stuff you run into in that deal. But it doesn't matter what, you know, yeah, passive income. It's an interesting thing to build. But the whole topic here is career. Like, what is it that you want to
Mm-hmm.
build? You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you want freedom, like real freedom, you can start building it, like immediately. And if you use the right system, you can build it faster than you could
Right.
using no system, or all the systems the magical stuff that you see out there,
Right.
because those don't work.
You know,
We've tried them, right? If they did, because we bought all those.
right.
We've bought so
Well,
many sales funnels and tricky shit that just doesn't work.
and that's why that system is so important because you can be in the
Yeah.
I our industry has done very well for us, and a lot of people on our team have, I mean, their lives are completely not what they expected because they were able to get into this and work a system that worked. But it's interesting because I find other people that get into this industry and they have the wrong system, and inevitably they fail. So, you can be in the right industry, but you also got to have the right system, and you got to implement the system, follow it. In Because I've seen a lot of guys come into this deal and they fail because they don't work the system. But everybody that works the system goes, "Oh boy, now my life's a lot easier." Yeah, yeah,
Well,
just
that's what we guarantee, right?
right.
When
Yeah,
when
we guarantee
people
that.
when
Yeah,
when people join us and join the Freedom Challenge, we guarantee. There's money involved to for us to teach you the system. There's
right,
there's tuition, you know, there's tuition. But if the only way I've ever seen it not work is if you don't do it or you
right.
quit. If you
Yep,
don't do it or quit, it's not going to work. If
right,
you continue, because it's not like everything else. It's a little bit different, and it's
right.
we everything that because you can probably get everything that we talk about. We look at it just slightly differently, not because we fell out of the womb looking at things differently.
Hmm.
Well, maybe we did. I don't know. But we fell out asking different questions. That's
Right,
clear,
right.
and that's the key, right? You go, how do I see this? How do I need to see this in a way that unlocks? You know, it's like when you look at trying to look through your hands, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, I don't know how to. It's like this, but it's got
Huh.
to be with my right eye, not my left eye.
Yeah,
There's all
right.
there's little adjustments that you need to make along the way in order, and then finally you see it, and doors that are open that you never saw are suddenly, I didn't even see those doors before, and
Right.
now they're not only a door but they're open. And you know but you don't see that, you don't see that until you get in and start changing your vantage points. Like, you ever like, um well, like when you get in an airplane, the higher you go, the further you can see,
Mhm.
as you ascend, as you so metaphor for growing, right?
Right.
I see every time, or like something clicks, you can't unsee the click. but
right,
you remember how, like, before something clicked, you just couldn't see it. It made
right.
no sense whatsoever. But
Mhm.
when it clicks, you go, ah,
Yeah,
suddenly it opens in front of you and you can't
yeah,
unsee it. And then
right,
from there you go, okay. And then something else clicks and something else clicks. And pretty soon you see more and more and more. And everything that you do going forward is based on what you see.
right,
And 40 years ago, you didn't see that stuff, or the people that
right.
aren't aren't in this, or aren't, um, the people that start, that you were referring to, people get in and they fail. Well, because they think that it's at that lower level. That's how it works. Everything, this is what I know. This is how the world
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
Well, that's how it works, but that's how it fails too.
Well,
And
that's
that's
how
where
it
most
works at
people
the level
reside.
you're at. See, this is what I think a
Yeah,
lot of people don't realize. It's like, oh, I know how it works. I know how it works. I go, you may know how it works at the level that you're at, but if you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. So you
yeah,
you have to understand things differently. And I think
yeah,
a part of that is just being present, paying attention, and then, like you said, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you recognize all these scenarios because you have experience or you've been
yeah.
taught. So it's like, it's like, and
Yeah,
I think
look for this.
look
Yeah,
for
look for,
this.
like you said,
Yeah,
being taught, right? Look for
yeah,
this. Look for
right.
this. Or like, when we're working with salespeople, right? And they
Hmm.
go, oh, they're saying this. You go, yeah, they're saying this, but that's not what they're meaning.
Right,
What
right,
they don't know how to say, or they're not saying it in a
right.
way, or you're not don't have the experience to see what they're really saying. But what they're really saying is this. And then so now go back and say this. And every time,
Yeah.
every
Oh,
time
it's
they go,
crazy.
oh,
And it's funny how, like, when you're walking people
if
through
they
this,
go back and say
if
that.
they go back,
Yeah,
but when these people have these experiences that are paying attention, and they go, how did you know that? How did you know this unfolded exactly how you said it was going to unfold? Because you do get to the point where you, like, at the very beginning of a deal, you hear about the first 2 minutes of kind of the dynamics of everything, and you it's like you almost have like a crystal ball. You can go, this is how this whole
yeah,
thing is going to lay out. And they go, how did you know? Well, because you're paying attention, you're present, you're listening, you're learning as you go. And that's how you get to
well,
that next level. You
right.
got it.
Well, you've seen it, like, and back when you first started, you wouldn't have seen it because you didn't
Right.
know,
Right.
and but when paying attention, you go, okay, how you keep asking. I think it's about asking questions like, oh, how would I, how? It's like, I call it walking with wonder, right? You're
Right.
asking, well, what are you observing? What are you seeing? It's like
Right.
reflection. You don't learn unless you reflect. Like,
Right.
what am I, it's like I'm observing and I'm reflecting. What's going on here? It's
Mhm.
like, because
Mhm.
that's like, what just happened, and
But
most
right there,
people
you're
don't
asking the
reflect.
question. But
Yeah,
what most people don't have is they don't have someone there to go. So whatever you do, you want a mentor. You want somebody who's been there. And you go, when you go, well, what happened? You go, you want to cut down your learning curve? You work with someone that can go, well, here's what happened. And you go, oh, or you can go make the
yeah,
mistake 3 more times before you figure it out. Then you have
yeah.
opportunity loss, right? You go,
Well,
man, that
and you
cost
have
me
to be
money.
open to learning, right?
Right.
Because some people aren't. They don't want to.
Yeah.
They don't want to be better coming out the other end. They think they're know-it-alls, right? They
Right.
they
Yeah.
they know it all. They've got it all figured out. Yeah. And you look at them, you go, you can see what they don't see. You go,
Right.
okay. But if that's all right, know-it-all. All right,
Yeah. How do
all
you
right.
know it all, but yet you have no choices, right? Like
Yeah,
you're stuck where you are, but you know it all. It's like, I'm not, it's kind of like if you go to the gym, right? You go to the gym and the trainer comes out and he's about 5'2" and weighs about 350 pounds. I, I'm not buying in. I can't, I have trouble subscribing to that. It's like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
so you're going to show me nutrition and workout programs? I'm going, I think be a product of your product, right? But,
yeah.
just listen. There's so many opportunities out there if you can just work with the right people that can show you and you pay attention. So,
Yeah, that's exactly right. One
there.
last story about that. I remember forever ago, I met with somehow I got connected with a financial planner, and I met with this woman at remember Wilderness Coffee Shop way
Yeah.
back when? Yeah,
Yeah.
I met her at Wilderness Coffee Shop, and we sat down at the table, and I'm looking at, you notice everything, right?
Uh-huh.
and I notice how her cuffs are a little frayed, and what
Yeah.
she's, and so which you just notice, right?
Right.
And she goes, well, what do you want? What do you want to accomplish? And I, like net worth wise, and I told her, and she, she did one of those. She
Hmm.
laughed at me, and I thought,
Wrong
okay,
answer.
wrong answer, darling.
Yeah.
You with the frayed cuffs that can't see, right? Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't want the 5'2", 350 pound fitness guy, because
Right.
I can't follow that, and
Right.
I can't follow somebody one who laughs at me and clearly can't figure their own stuff out.
Right.
Uh, yeah, yeah,
It's like, look, you're not rich enough to be eccentric. Okay. And it's funny, the most people, more people that
right,
flash, they don't have it. Don't think they have it.
right. Well,
They're
that's true. That's true. That's true. That's
yeah.
true. And if she would have approached it differently, she goes, I don't buy new stuff, and if it's like, okay, here's my financial, I'm speaking from her, right?
Right.
If she's like, I don't care if you wear all the frayed stuff and drive a piece of
Right.
shit vehicle, if it's by
Right.
design, if it's intentional, and
Right.
look, I don't spend
Right.
money on this stuff like everybody else does. I put mine away. Here's what I do, and here's my net worth based on the little bit of money that I've made, and I'm making more. Yada, and then it's like,
Right.
okay, I get it. It's the whole
You
picture.
can
It's
respect
the
that though.
Yeah,
You
and you
can
would, and you
respect that
do, you would.
because she's shooting you straight. And let me share one story real quick, and then we can. My sister used to work at a clothing store in Omaha, Nebraska, and that's where Warren Buffett's from. So this clothing store, Warren Buffett bought his suits there before he was Warren Buffett. You know what I mean? Before he had all this money. And my sister's met him several times, and so me being interested in somebody's worth, one of the top richest people in the world, I'm like, what's that like? What's the deal? And she goes, this guy at this point was $100 billion net worth, but he would still come in and get his pants taken in and taken out depending on the season. I mean, that guy could buy any. He could just go send me 10 new suits. I mean, this guy could do anything, but he understood the power of like that. His tools were his revenue. That was his money to use to keep investing and do to, I can't invest like that because I don't understand that like he does, right? But the point is that don't listen to the ones that are always super flashy, because
Yeah,
odds are they're not what you really want to be. You know what I mean? It's
good.
built on a house of cards, man. Built on a house of, and not everybody, I understand that, but a lot of
Yeah, some
them
people
are,
are just, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
You ever
And
see Boiler Room?
oh yeah,
They are making tons of money, but they spend it, twice as fast. The
what's
guy,
the
does have a Ferrari, and made
right?
400 grand still living at mom's house.
What was the line in the movie? The guy said, these guys, they drive $200,000 sports cars, but they can't afford to put gas in them. And it's like, it's
Right.
like, but be real,
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
depth to you, and that's
Yeah.
that's the kind of deal you want. Trust me, it's a lot easier
Yeah.
that way.